Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this movie review. So, today we'll be continuing with my current horror franchise for the month of August that I've been taking a look at, and that's the Friday the 13th franchise. So, today we're going to take a look at Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And this is the last film in my 8 pack, Blu ray 8 pack of the first 8 movies here. So, yeah, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. So I'll just start with the premise and the setup of the movie, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will contain spoilers, of course. So Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan is a 1989 American slasher film written and directed by Rob Hedden, and starring Jensen Daggett, Scott Reeves, Peter Mark Richmond, and Kane Hodder's Jason Voorhees reprising his role from Part 7. It's the eighth installment in the Friday the 13th franchise. This is set years after The New Blood. The film follows Jason as he stalks a group of high school graduates on a ship en route to New York City. It was the final film in the series to be distributed by Paramount Pictures in the United States, where the subsequent installments are distributed by New Line Cinema. Um, so yeah, the movie starts out while aboard a houseboat on Crystal Lake. Teenager Jim Miller tells his girlfriend Susie the legend of Jason Voorhees before playing a prank on her with a hockey mask and a prop knife. The boat's anchor damages some underwater cables that shock Jason's corpse, which is still chained at the bottom of the lake, and revive him. He sneaks on board, takes the mask, and kills Jim with a harpoon gun before impaling Susie. The next morning, the SS Lazarus is ready to set sail for New York City with a graduating senior class from Lakeview High School, chaperoned by biology teacher Dr. Charles McCulloch and English teacher Colleen Van Dusen. Van Dusen brings McCulloch's niece Rennie along for a trip despite her aquaphobia, much to his chagrin. Jason sneaks on board and kills rock star wannabe J.J. Jarrett with her guitar. That night, a young boxer who lost his match to champion Julius discovers Julius Gaz killed by Jason in the ship's sauna. Rennie, searching for her pet border collie Toby, discovers prom queen Tamara Mason and her friend Eva Wannabe doing drugs. McCulloch nearly catches them moments later, and Tamara pushes Rennie overboard, believing that she told on them. She then uses video student Wayne Weber to record McCulloch's compromising situation with her, but rejects Wayne's advances afterwards. Jason kills Tamara with a shard of broken mirror that after she showers. So that's basically the introduction of the film and sort of the premise of the film. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Obviously, you can guess from there that Jason wreaks havoc on the boat and then eventually in New York City. So, yeah, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. The cast in this movie, Jensen Daggett is Rennie. The final girl, Scott Reeves, is Sean Robertson. Her love interest, Barbara Bingham, is Colleen Van Dusen. Peter Mark Richmond is Charles McCulloch. Martin Cummings is Wayne, and Kane Hodder, of course, is Jason Voorhees. So this movie, this is interesting. Wow, that's all I can say. Um, I guess I'll just start with my pros. There are some pros with this movie. It's not all bad. Um, so we start with the pros, and you got to start with Kane Hodder as Jason. I think he's even more solid in this movie as the character than he was in the previous movie. Just his presence and his demeanor in this movie, very mean spirited, very he obviously has a lot of presence in every scene that he's in, just very menacing. So Kane Hodder definitely two thumbs up in this movie. The setting of New York when the movie's actually there is pretty cool. It's different. It looks pretty good. Um, trying a new setting like that. That's another pro. They tried something different with this movie, as I've given credit for in the past to other franchises, as well as this one. It's not just a rehash at Crystal Lake. This time they actually take Jason out of Crystal Lake and take him to the Big Apple. Um, and eventually he gets there. I'll get into that more in a little bit. The special effects are pretty good in this movie for the most part. There's a couple scenes that aren't great, but for the most part, they're pretty good. This movie has quite a few kills, a little bit more blood and gore than the previous movie, which, as I said in my review, was pretty hacked up by the MPAA. The best kill of this movie by far is in New York City, where Jason punches the head off of Julius, the boxer champion, who spends like a minute or two just punching Jason in the face and the body, wears himself out and tells Jason to take his best shot, and Jason does, and his best shot knocks Julius's head off in one hit. So that was pretty cool. Some of the humor was pretty good in the movie. It landed for me anyway. The biggest one being when Jason climbs out of the water in New York City when he first gets there and sees the hockey player billboard with the hockey mask that's basically the one that he's wearing, looks just like him. It's kind of a funny moment there, and he kicks the radio walking down the street. There were a couple scenes like that that worked pretty good for me humor wise. So, yeah, that's the end of my pros. Now we'll get into my cons. So, settle in. Obviously people have talked about this before, but the title of this movie, Jason Takes Manhattan, is very deceiving. It doesn't line up at all with what the movie actually is, because he's only in Manhattan the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie. And actually, he's really some of that's shot in Vancouver too, so he's really only in Manhattan for like 10 or 15 minutes of this movie. Most of it's on a boat. Like the first hour is on a boat in this movie, at least the first hour. So right away, you got people are mad watching this movie because when you have a title that says Jason Takes Manhattan, you expect Jason to take Manhattan. Call me crazy, but I think that's what people expected. And I know it's expensive to shoot in New York City. I've heard that reasoning before, which I even understand it. But then you got to change the title of your movie. It shouldn't be Jason Takes Manhattan. It should be Jason Takes a Cruise, or Jason Takes a boat down, something, anything else that actually makes sense to what this movie was. Got to talk about the characters again. They're flat. They're awful in this movie. The worst bunch yet, and that's saying something because there's been some previous movies where the characters have been bad, but the acting, this might be the worst acting so far in the first eight movies. It's just atrocious. Thinly written, cliche characters once again. Really bad dialogue in this movie as well from the characters, which tells me that the writing was really bad in this movie, maybe the worst yet. The characters are just so unlikable and unrelatable. Yeah, that's a huge problem. Once again, we have more kills that are simply cutaway kills, and in this movie, unlike Part Seven, which are also cutaway kills, in that movie, I felt like the kills tried to be a little bit more creative and memorable. At least, really, the only kill that's memorable in this entire movie is the one I mentioned earlier, the boxing, where he boxes the guy's head clean off. Other than that, the kills aren't really that memorable or that interesting. Um, this movie's long for a slasher movie. It's an overly long slasher movie that's really not well paced at all. As I said, the first hour plus is on a boat. Then they go to Manhattan slash Vancouver for about, there's still like 20 or 30 minutes of the movie. I mean, this movie, I think the runtime's 100 minutes, which it feels like 100 minutes too. That's how you know it's not a very well done movie, because there were times I was checking my watch, like, wow, this movie's still going on and it's been over an hour and a half. And that's just not a good sign. It didn't need to be that long. Clearly, there was just too much story. They tried to cram it all in after they realized the New York City stuff was just too expensive to shoot. They already had the highest budget on this movie of any of the previous films, $5 million, but they needed more than that to actually shoot a lot in New York. Um, the story is ridiculous. That's the biggest. Well, I shouldn't say the biggest. There's many big problems and cons of this movie, but the story. What? So all of a sudden now Crystal Lake's connected to New York City apparently through, I don't know. I guess a stream, a river. It's like its own ocean. I'm not really sure how that works. It's like that's a WTF moment there. It's just it's so ridiculous. I mean, it's one thing to try to take Jason out of Crystal Lake. I applaud him for that, but my God, I mean, couldn't you come up with something better? The final girl of Rennie is probably the least interesting and the least strong final girl of all of these movies so far, the first eight anyway. There's just not a lot to her. She's cute, she looks good. Um, but she's all she does is scream and run for the most part in this movie, and then throws a bucket of toxic sludge, and I guess stabs him in the eye when she's on the boat. Yet, other than that, it's a lot of running and screaming. Just not a very good final girl. Um, the look of Jason in this movie is terrible. It doesn't line up with any of the other looks we've had. He looked a lot better in part seven, the previous movie. He looks like a normal kid when they show flashbacks of him in this movie, where she's sort of visualizing flashbacks, which we find out why towards the end of the film. Um, Jason never looked like a regular kid. Even when he was a kid, had the mongrel sort of face and look to him. I don't know what the hell this movie is doing. Apparently, they didn't watch any of the previous movies, which leads to another which there's serious continuity issues with this movie. Now, again, the Friday the 13th franchise has never been overly concerned about continuity, and it gets worse as the franchise goes on. This is certainly the worst of it so far, though, because not only does this movie not set up future movies well at all with the ending and what they do, but they ignore so much of what came before it. I mean, it's just like the most detached from a continuity standpoint. I hate the look of Jason. I hate the look of young Jason. Um, the flashbacks of him as a kid. The ending is even worse than part seven, if you can believe that, in terms of Jason's demise in this movie. Got to be the worst ending of any Friday the 13th movie. Apparently, toxic waste now turns Jason into a kid by throwing a bucket of it on him. He starts to melt like the Wicked Witch of the West. And then once, apparently, they flood New York sewers with all this toxic sludge at midnight every night, which I don't know. I guess maybe they did in 1989. I don't know. Never been to New York City, so and after the water clears, the sludge clears, and Jason's laying there as a normal looking kid once again, unconscious. As apparently Jason melted away and became a kid again or something. I don't really know what the hell the ending's supposed to be. It's another WTF moment in a movie of many WTF moments. Overall, it's just a bad movie that makes no sense with awful characters and a ridiculous premise. But other than that summary, it's great. Um, you could probably guess where my rating's going to go for this movie. It's the worst one so far of the first eight. Now, I still have four more to go. So I'm not going to say it's the worst of the franchise yet, because that would be unfair. I haven't seen actually three of the last four. I haven't seen all the movies all the way through. So we'll have to wait till the ranking video at the very end of August to find out where I rank it. But I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 at this point. The only reason I'm giving it a 6 is because they tried something different. The special effects were decent. The scenes in New York, especially in Times Square, were pretty cool to see Jason there, even though it was short lived. And Kane Hodder as Jason is great. That's enough to get it a 6 out of 10 for me. So yeah, that's my rating for Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. It should have been called Jason Takes a Cruise. Um, I don't know, guys. Tell me what you think. Most people do consider this one of the worst of the series, and I can see why. Um, again, there were a few things I liked about it, but 6 out of 10 is my rating. Go ahead and give me your thoughts down below in the comments about what you think of this movie. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you can see when my next videos are coming out. Please subscribe to my channel to see future reviews of not only the rest of the Friday the 13th series, but other standalone horror movie reviews, which I'll be doing in the upcoming months. So thank you for watching this video. Have a great day. Bye.